Hello and welcome to my channel and welcome to, well, Once Upon a Time, my thoughts on Once Upon a Time episodes 15 to 17. Why am I doing it as a batch? Well, with the Kathrines storyline and the fact that a lot of the story arcs are now developing over several episodes, it seems rather silly to have my thoughts several episodes behind where I am on the reactions, because basically I need to comment and make predictions, and I can't make predictions about a storyline that I already know the ending to, or at least partly. So I thought I'd basically use this to catch up with my thoughts and then keep them ahead. Anyway, let's get on with this. First of all, let me go through some things about Red Handed that I missed in my thoughts video. I wasn't happy with the way that turned out. I had some very strong opinions and questions about that episode that for some reason I wasn't able to articulate very well. So let me try again. The first thing is Granny. During the course of the events, because we didn't get the classical Red Riding Hood story, and after we find out Red is the wolf, Granny tells the story of how she was turned and how she used to be the wolf. And it got me thinking, is Ruby the Red Riding Hood, or is she just a Red Riding Hood, so to speak? Was Granny the original Red Riding Hood to which the classic story refers? I know we were told about the story, but I'd like to go back and see a few scenes from Granny's childhood and how she got turned and her experiences as the wolf. I think that would be quite interesting. I don't think we're going to get it, but I'd like to see it in some future episode. Moving on to Heart of Darkness, we get further developments in the Mary Margaret murder case, where, well, for a start, Rumpelstiltskin, Mr. Gold, is taken on as Mary Margaret's lawyer, stating, "Why do you think I'm so good at making deals or making contracts?" I thought that was a brilliant line. We see evidence piling up and piling up against Mary Margaret. The knife mysteriously found in her apartment. Obviously her fingerprints on the box, the fact that it is her jewellery box, all these things pointing towards Mary Margaret. It has to be a setup. It's too good now to be anything but a setup. But it does lead me to think, whose heart is it? Is it Kathrine's? Is she dead? In which case, who did kill her? And it's funny how murders always seem to centre around the heart, which is Regina's speciality, isn't it? She's got all those glass hearts in a cabinet. So I'm thinking Regina killed Kathrine. I don't know yet. And then of course a skeleton key is planted in Mary Margaret's cell, and who is the only person that has skeleton keys? Regina, again. So it's definitely Regina. Whether she's in league with Mr. Gold or not, I don't know. Mr. Gold always has his own agendas, so. But the one thing that Mary Margaret shouldn't have done was use that skeleton key, because now to the whole town she's going to look guilty. And the moment Regina gets that information that she's escaped, it's all over for her. But she did escape. Very silly. And then in Heart of Darkness we find out what happened to her afterwards. Emma's in the woods looking for Mary Margaret, trying to get her back into the cell before anyone finds out she's missing, and runs into Jefferson, And what a brilliant reference that was. Jefferson Airplane, White Rabbit, the Mad Hatter. Again, another just a little moment that didn't need to be put in there, but it was just perfect. And in the end, Mary Margaret gets back to her cell without anybody noticing. And in Hat Trick, we find out that yes, indeed, Mr. Gold is helping Regina. Mr. Gold is playing both sides. Why? Again, Mr. Gold's motives in any situation are always suspect. So that's anyone's guess for the moment. And that's where we leave it. We're left with Mary Margaret in her cell, awaiting for her trial or whatever, the first meeting with the judge or whatever. I don't know what it is, but she's in her cell. She's back where she belongs, where she should be, and no one's any the wiser. And wasn't Regina pissed off about that? Because obviously she knows what's going to happen if Mary Margaret tries to leave town. So when the Mad Hatter kidnapped her, did that actually in fact save Mary Margaret? Anyway, that concludes the Kathrines Murder case for the moment. So let's go back to Heart of Darkness and discuss all the other elements. With the rest of this episode, Heart of Darkness, to be quite honest, when I first watched it, I wasn't sure whether I liked it or not. It had some brilliant elements, but the story as a whole I wasn't sure about. Several watches later, and watching actually a couple of reactors react to this episode, mainly Torchwood Boy and the Masked Reactor, I've decided that yes, in fact I do like this episode. It's a creeper. It grows on you. So one of the best scenes was right at the beginning, where Red goes full on wolf, fully embracing her wolf nature. Absolutely brilliant scene, and of course extremely helpful to Prince James, because it's getting King George's troops away from James long enough that James can find Snow White. And of course Snow White has already taken the potion to make her forget about James, which has left her, well, it's what the Heart of Darkness I think actually refers to. Snow has turned into this unemotional, unempathic, unloving shadow of her former self. A very funny moment. I really enjoyed the moment where Snow was going full Disney, even singing the song, and then suddenly goes full psycho and tries to kill the little birdie, the pretty little birdie, which shows to what levels Snow has sunk because of this. Another of my favourite moments was the double dealing of Rumpelstiltskin. First we meet him and he says that he can't help Snow in her condition. There's no cure for what Snow has. And then helps Snow by giving her the magic bow and arrow. And then again later demanding James's cloak in return for information of where Snow is. And that was hilarious when James finally catches up with Snow and she doesn't recognise him. She recognises that he's the man she wanted to forget, but she doesn't actually know who he is, and thumps him. Brilliant. We have a nice scene with the stranger, August, talking to Henry, where he explains why the stranger has come into town. That it's to persuade Emma of the reality that she's refusing to see. And I liked that, but I don't believe him, because he had Henry's book and he changed something, and I don't know what he changed or what the ramifications are going to be. So I'm not entirely sure whether I trust him or not. But probably the most chilling moment of the episode was Emma making a deal with Rumpelstiltskin, saying she will do whatever it takes to bring Regina down. So we don't know what the ramifications of that are going to be, but I can guarantee that it is going to be extremely beneficial to Mr. Gold and extremely unhelpful to virtually everybody else, because that is generally the way Mr. Gold's deals work. Hat trick. And we finally get a Alice in Wonderland character, the Mad Hatter, who it turns out actually originated in the Enchanted Forest and got trapped in Wonderland by the Queen of Hearts. And it seems that Jefferson, in all of his guises, is a conduit between worlds, or he can produce a conduit between worlds, and that he also remembers all of it, all the conflicting realities, which has driven him fairly insane. I enjoyed that explanation of the Mad Hatter. Of course, the Mad Hatters were it was written as being mad because the chemicals used in hat making in the 1860s caused, well, madness. Mercury. Mercury was used in the manufacture of felt hats in the 19th century, and one of the symptoms of mercury poisoning is tremors, memory loss and slurred speech, which led to the phrase mad as a hatter, which definitely predates Lewis Carroll's work. Anyway, back to the episode. I loved to see in Wonderland. I thought it was depicted very Tim Burton-ish, but then again Tim Burton's interpretation of Wonderland is superb, so that it was no small honour. And no, I liked Wonderland. I liked the Queen of Hearts, and I was left with one question, which is, if Jefferson was reincarnated, reinstated in Storybook, that means he must have been in the Enchanted Forest at the time of the Dark Curse, which means he did escape Wonderland at some point. Although we left the episode with him in a room, driven mad, not being able to create the magic hat that he needed, he must have done it eventually. So I look forward to seeing how he done that in a future episode, hopefully, please. So we've only got 5 more episodes, so what do I think is going to happen? Well, I'm hoping we're going to get a conclusion to the Kathrines Murder scenario. I'm hoping we're going to get an answer to who August is and why he's really in Storybook. I'm hoping we're going to get some mystery to open up just before the end that will take us into the next series. So I'd like something to end season 1 that brings me straight into season 2 again. What that's going to be, I don't know. I also want to see the Queen's story. Why she hates Snow White, how she became evil. I need that before the end of season 1, because a lot of you are criticising my hatred of Regina, because to me she's evil. She's just the evil queen at the moment. I've seen no real goodness in her yet, and I'd like to see that, because I'd like to see your point of view, that she is actually a sympathetic person. So he's hoping, and my next video will be Stable Boy. See you then.